Okay, here we go. Day 4. Favorite wrestling attire. It's funny because I was just thinking about this the other day, or actually earlier today. I was thinking about favorite gimmicks or just consistent gimmicks, So, like, you had Skinner dressing up like some dude who literally would be out in the outback. That was Steve Kern, by the way. He was playing Skinner, but he would literally dress up like a dude in the outback with his shirt cut off and his pants and his boots and all that kind of stuff. And then you had dudes like Nails who looked like he got fresh out of prison. Then you got dudes like Norman the Lunatic who looked like he got out of a sane asylum. The Undertaker, of course, with his gimmick and his attire. And so I was just kind of thinking about this earlier, and it just it's kind of funny because I hadn't really thought of it before, and then here it is, this day 4's question. So I guess I got to kind of do a top 5 favorite attires, and I don't think I'm going to end up picking any attires that are just simple, like Hogan's yellow and red. That's very cool, very consistent for the million years that he's done it. I'm not going to be picking anything like that, or The Rock with his simple black tights, or Steve Austin or anything like that. These are going to be more character consistent, or very nice designs on their tights or what have you. There's a lot of great ones nowadays, from Charlotte, and the way that her tops look. They look really cool, and they go with her bottoms. Like, I think in 2K19, she has like a turquoise top and like some design on it that matches her bottoms. Looks really cool. Asuka's is really cool and far out. I don't know what the hell at all. I couldn't even describe it if I wanted to, but there's just a lot that goes on in that one. So there's some really cool ones, but like my top 5 favorite, where I'm just like, I really like the way that looks. Even if it's simple, like not just a straight color and that's it. But I mean, like, let's just get into it. Top 5. I don't even know if I'm going to be ranking them. I'm just saying the top 5. But let me go ahead and tell you one of my top 5, which is Sting, because I loved the Scorpion logo. I loved it, loved it, loved it. And the fact that literally could go on, like the logo could be any color, then the tights could be any color. When he wrestled Sid Vicious, Halloween Havoc 1990, I want to say it was, pink tights, black Scorpion on his tights. Even when he wrestled the Black Scorpion, just kidding. Anyway, when he wrestled Ric Flair, Great American Bash 1990, this is actually one of the attires that you can use in Legends of Wrestling 3 when they released their third version of that game. They added Sting, Rick Rude, Jake the Snake Roberts, Dusty Rhodes, Nikita Koloff, Mr. Perfect, and I think one or two other people who hadn't been in previous games, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, you could use that Great American Bash attire. His attire when he wrestled Flair at Clash of the Champions. I think it was like black tights with the yellow Scorpion on it, but it's like the same thing. And then his character in 2K19 is yellow tights, blue boots, but with the blue Scorpion on. So it's really simple and interchangeable, and you can kind of do whatever you want, whenever the hell you want. Because it was simple and it was cool. And then, of course, his face paint would always seem to match. He wouldn't, so that Great American Bash 1990, that face paint, of course, was red, white, and blue, because it's Great American Bash. It's around the 4th of July. And, of course, his tights were blue, and I think the Scorpion was red and white. And I think the tight and the boots were blue. So he really kept it consistent when he did the face paint with the attire. So I really like that. This is actually going to be a pretty short one, I think. Number 2 that I really like, I think I'm going to go ahead and put these as a tie, or number 4, whatever, however we're ranking this, whatever, is Bret Hart. When he was the Hitman, he had the skull on the back of his tights and like this Thunderbolt-looking type design down the side that says Hitman, I think on both sides, and they were pink and black. And also AJ Styles, when he came over to WWE, he's kind of changed his tights and colors a few times. He's had red and black and white and black and blue, and kind of like Sting, it's like the same thing over and over again. It's just a different color scheme every time. Obviously, AJ didn't have any kind of face paint or anything accompanying all that. but it was still pretty cool to see, especially with the Japanese writing on the side. That probably makes people go to Google and try to type it in and see what the hell it means. It might mean champion or great one or who knows, whatever. It might mean gaijin. I have no idea. But I really like the look of those two attires. I think they're pretty cool looking. Brett's was usually pretty consistent. I don't think he changed it up too much. But when you have someone like AJ, and like I mentioned with Sting, there's so much you can do with that. There's literally so much you can do with that every week, I can't imagine how many they would have had over the years regarding that design. And I'm sure the way they make them now, you can do, maybe 4 or 5 and just kind of have them ready to use whenever you need to use them. And hopefully they're machine washable, machine wash cold. I'm not sure how that all works. Anyway, I'm going to throw in a tag team in here too, because I kind of have to. I have to throw in this tag team right here. And I'm kind of struggling as I think about this because this tag team is definitely regarded as one of the best tag teams of all time. I will tell you that they wrestled in WWEF, whatever, and the NWA WCW. I wanted to say something else. I just got to give it away. Anyway, the Road Warriors. But not when they were the Road Warriors, but when they were the Legion of Doom. And I think it's because their entrance to the ring, and I'm going to throw in the music with this one too, because the music was such a huge part of their entrance and their attire. Like when they were in WCW and WA before they came over to WWF, they had the shoulder pads that were just black with the silver spikes or metal spikes on it, the same type of spikes that they used to, enter dusty roads. Their tights were very simple with the black tights, very simple. And it would say Road Warriors on one side of one leg, and on the other side of the other leg, it would say Hawk or Animal, depending on which one you were. Very simple. And the color schemes, I think, was just pretty much either white, red, or maybe yellow. I think that was pretty much it. They didn't do a whole lot of color variations. But, I mean, with that, and back then, you didn't really need to. Because really, and then, of course, the face paint. Animal always had his style of face paint with a spider like in the middle of his forehead, and then kind of like some, I don't even know what to call it, but it was very different from how Hawk did his. Hawk had like a 4 or 5 spiked thing around one eye, and then had like under another eye was almost like a upside down triangle with like a piece cut out underneath his eye for the angle. But it was pretty cool looking, and they changed it up a little bit once they got to W. Oh wait, no, the one I'm talking about with Hawk, he changed his. That was the one from WWF when he was in WCW and WA. It actually was more kind of full face it was actually full on both sides. I'm getting a little confused because I forgot how much they did in both companies. Anyway, I really like the attire, and I'm going to include that because mostly also the shoulder pads. Now, when I went into WWF, the shoulder pads were, I think they were red with black spikes, and they didn't look as metal or metallic. But definitely when they were in NWA, they definitely looked metallic. They looked legit real, and they were so scary to look at. I mean, really, people always say, if you saw them coming down a dark alley, you're going to turn and run the other way. And I don't mean just walk, but I legit mean run, because these guys looked scary as shit. It was crazy. Loved them to death. And then, of course, when they were in NWA, hearing Iron Man, when they would enter the ring and then start beating people up while they were still wearing their shoulder pads, or maybe they took the shoulder pads off before they got in the ring and then would start beating people up while the song's still playing. Or, they would do that in WWF, What a Rush song. And even that was great too, because it was just like, it was so intense when you would hear it. You wouldn't be like, oh yeah, this song kind of sucks. No, it would get you pumped. And you had to be pumped to see the Road Warriors, because they, there's a thing called the Road Warrior pop. It's now probably the Stone Cold Steve Austin or Hulk Hogan pop or whatever, but the Road Warrior pop was just basically how fans would just go nuts when they would see the Road Warriors, because they looked so menacing, and then the way that they wrestled, they would just destroy people. I think it was Hawk or Animal talked about a time when they were wrestling I think, two great veterans in AWA. I want to say it was like Dick the Bruiser and maybe the Crusher or somebody like that. But I'm pretty sure Dick the Bruiser was one of them. And the agreement, apparently ahead of time, this is when the Road Warriors were pretty young. This was before they were in NWA. The agreement supposed before the match was, don't do any of that over-the-head shoulder press shit because we can't look like that because, we're big guy veterans and we can't be doing spots like that because it's going to make us look bad. And Animal or Hawk, whatever, was like, okay, okay, like Chad from SNL. Okay, cool. They didn't follow through with that because they definitely did some shoulder presses and stuff like that. So, just a very menacing looking tag team that just like, oh my God, you guys look amazing. I mean, their bodies, Hawk was always more muscular, than Animal, but just because he was taller and more muscular didn't mean that he was any more imposing or Animal was any less imposing than the other. I mean, the two just went, oh, I forgot the haircuts. They went together like that. But Animal had the mohawk down the middle with kind of a mullet tail in the back that would reach to maybe his shoulders, maybe a little bit longer than into his shoulder, into his back. And then Hawk had his head shaved down the middle, and he had the sides kind of just remaining, parts of his side that would go from the front of his forehead all the way to like the back of the start of his neck, or maybe the base of it. No, not the base of his neck, the start of his neck. And then the reason for that was because it's like they're a unit, So Animal's haircut and Hawk's haircut would make one full head of hair. Just like, I mean, people consider them one of the greatest tag teams of all time, not because of their in-ring ability per se. Like, you would look at them and say, oh, they put on a great wrestling match like the Steiners would, or Kurt Angle or Bret Hart. But you would just be like, that was entertaining to watch them beat the shit out of somebody for 5 minutes, or to be in a real match and then have a comeback later toward the end, when they're doing the I don't know, the revival spot, whatever it is, the spot where the hot tag, that's what it's called, the hot tag. So really cool to see their look, and I really appreciated how they did that. There's another, I guess, number two, if you want to call it that, because I definitely do know what my number one is overall. I really liked Beefcake's after he became the barber. I really liked how he did his stuff, where his sides were cut out. I loved how Rick Rude would have a different, I guess, design on his tights. I remember when he had Cheryl Roberts, Jake Roberts' wife, during their feud. He had he had her face not spray painted on, but painted on. I think it was even on the back or something like that, or maybe like her face on the front. I forget how it was, but it was very, very sexualized and very cool. And he would change it up even when he wasn't in a feud with Jake Roberts. It would still, the tights would still be different, and I appreciated that. Matter of fact, the Ultimate Warrior would have different types of tights as well, not just like a simple red, blue, or green or something like that, but he would have different types of tights. Matter of fact, I think it was it WWE 2K14 or 16? He had like 5 or 6 different tights or attires that you could use. And I was just like, that's kind of accurate. Like how he looked at WrestleMania, was he in WrestleMania 4? I think he was, versus how he looked at SummerSlam 88, versus how he looked at SummerSlam 89, WrestleMania 5, WrestleMania 6. The retirement match with Macho Man, the comeback against Hogan at Halloween Havoc, the WrestleMania 8, like he had different attires. And plus, before he even became the famous Ultimate Warrior with the IC Championship after he beat Honky Tonk Man, his earlier outfits were pretty bland. He always had the ribbons kind of from his knees and from his arms, and his arms were just immaculate. The guy was just he looked absolutely great. But yeah, you could always kind of interchange his stuff too. But anyway, so my number 2 attire, I'm gonna have to go with. Okay, I had to look some stuff up because I'm just like, I really wanted to include the Dudley Boys as well, and I thought it's not that I don't want to include them as far as them making this list, but it was just more of, I don't think it was. I mean, it was cool, but it just wasn't that great. in comparison to who I'm about to say. And for being my quote unquote number twos, I did say twos as plural because there's another tie. I thought about all four of these people, yes, four, before I had to stop and just say, you know what, this is who it is. This is who it is. Okay, here we go. One of my four ties for spot number 2 is Rey Mysterio, and the picture I'm looking at here is a photo of 15 attires he's had. I want to say since like whenever he got to WWE. So I want to say 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. It definitely was after WCW closed, I believe. But there's ones of him as the Flash. There's a red and white bottom one where it says 619. He's got his Rey Mysterio, I think, logo on the other side. There's the one he used when he came back to WWE in the Royal Rumble. There's a Spider-Man one. Looks like there's like a Black Panther one. I'm not really sure if that's really him. I gotta click on this image real quick. But I think that's him. I think he used a Black Panther, that's this guy. This guy, Rey Mysterio, man, he's got so many variations of his attire, and the mask and the cross in the middle. I don't know if you're religious or Christian or whatever, but it's pretty consistent. But just like how much he can change around the mask, around the eyes, whether it's, like I said, the Spider-Man thing, or like there's like a green, pink, like neon thing going on here. Like, he's just got so many variations. He's got a Joker version. I give so much respect to this dude because he was so good at being so variable when it came to his designs, and I respect the hell out of it. Absolutely. Another person who actually was was going to actually be my number 2, and then I started thinking more and more and more about it, and I thought, you know what, I'll say this: the entrance with the effects and the music when it would hit, and then when he would get to the ring, add so much more to his attire. And I know Ray, when he would enter the ring and kind of jump in and do the 619 thing and booyah, whatever, but that's really cool. But this one, actually, you know what? I'm gonna leave that one for the fourth one that'll go into my number one overall for sure. Let me go to the other version. So there's Gold Dust. Gold Dust, since early 90s, mid 90s, when he left WCW, went to WWF, and then came back to WCW, and then he was like, nah, I'm out again. He's got several versions of him being Gold Dust in several different outfits. And then you see what he did when he went to AEW and did All or Nothing, and had another version of Gold Dust, except it was red dust, so to speak. And on top of that, it was half of his face painted instead of the entire face painted. He's got at least 3 or 4 versions of how he looked as Gold Dust in WWE, and it looks really cool. It looks really cool. He had the I guess, essence about him that was very flamboyant, very kind of mysterious, just kind of weird. But that's just what he would do. That was his character, and it worked. It worked very well. It was very flamboyant, but yet he as a wrestler was great. I was actually thinking a little bit ago how it's unfortunate that Gold Dust is what's remembered more than Dustin Rhodes himself, because Dustin Rhodes, they called him the Natural for a reason, and he was just a great wrestler in the ring, and he would put on good matches. It wasn't fun as far as like the silliness, but it was definitely something you would look back and clap your hands at the end, like watching Pillman versus Liger. Like, there was no fun in there other than just how entertaining the match was itself. Dustin Rhodes was like that as a character, the Natural Dustin Rhodes. But when he became Gold Dust, he gets remembered more for that because it becomes silly. It's the same thing I said on the episode several days ago about entertainment. People have to be entertained, right? If you don't entertain people, they're not going to remember you. That's what Kenny Omega, it's great to have him be as athletic as he is right now, but he's not really entertaining in the ring. It's pretty much all business. I just rewatched an old 2 out of 3 falls match between Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero on SmackDown from like 2004 or 5. And I didn't realize how fun that match was. It wasn't just mat wrestling and, a good match. I mean, it was fun overall. It was about 23, 25 minutes worth of entertainment. And, there was there was a lot of headlocks in the beginnings. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. This is going to be boring. But then there was kicks to the balls, and there was Eddie Guerrero pulling Kurt Angle's his straps on his outfit, on his attire, and then the referee counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Eddie would let go of a headlock real quick and let go of the attire real quick, and then put the headlock back on him and grab the attire again. Really funny stuff that Eddie would do. And then there was Luther Reigns and a steel chair that got involved later, and Eddie pretending to be knocked out by Kurt and doing the whole lie, cheat, steal thing. Like, it was a lot of fun, and it was good wrestling. There was mat wrestling in there, storytelling. It was great. It was absolutely great. It was entertaining though, because just a match that would just be like, oh, it's pretty straightforward and pretty serious. Like Brett and Shawn at WrestleMania 12, the Iron Man match, 60 minutes of just like, fuck, hurry up. There was not a single fall for 60 minutes. It's pretty boring. That's why I don't remember anything about the match until the draw and then the comeback, and then Shawn won and then kicked Brett out of the ring. That's what I remember the most, and a lot of headlocks and rest holds, basically. But I give Goldust, anyway, that was my little side note, but I give Goldust a lot of props for his outfits and his attires, and also someone who had a very, was sort of looking for a menacing look to him with his wrestling attire. Was also Big Van Vader, as we called him originally when he was in New Japan and he was in AWA, I believe. He was Big Van Vader, and he had an attire that was kind of simple. It was a mask, but it had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 8 to 10 different holes in it. So you could obviously see his real face. So he wasn't really trying to hide anything per se, as far as like the when he got to WWF. But like his original mask only had like 3 holes. I believe that's what it had. Like, yeah, when he first got to WCW, it only had 3 holes. But eventually they changed the mask up a little bit. It was pretty cool. And then his attire, like on his body, was like a 1-piece, maybe a 2-piece, whatever it was, but it definitely covered his body. And then he had the leggings or whatever, the pants that would be black, but there's like a red stripe down the side of his on each side of the pants and of his top. And on the top, it also said Vader Time in the middle, which he didn't really need. I mean, that came when he was in WWF, but before that, he didn't really need that. But the other part of it, when he would come to the ring, he had this like weird kind of helmet type thing that he would have on his shoulder and head, right? It would cover his shoulders and his head, and it had like some horns in it. And he would take it off when he would get to the ring. Very menacing, scary looking dude. And when he would get to the ring, he would take it off, and then he would stand behind it and do like some martial arts type stuff, almost like a ceremonial thing. And then all of a sudden, the thing would spit out smoke, and it was really cool looking. And if you're not scared of a dude like that, you're out of your mind. Speaking of out of your mind, I think Vince was out of his mind, but in a good way, because this is my 4th tie for spot number 2, which is, and I know I said this was going to be a shorter one, but I guess I lied. This is already 23 minutes in, or 24 minutes in. Anyway, here we go. This guy made his debut at Hell in a Cell 97, I believe, Bad Blood, something or other, pay-per-view, and it's Kane. And when he came in and he ripped the cage door off, and I think he did something to the Undertaker, and Shawn Michaels won. Like, I can't remember all the details of that match, but holy shit, that was intense. And then when Kane actually became, a regular character on the show, I mean, I'm looking at his attire right now from, I guess it was like 97, 98, whatever. Just the whole black at the top of it, covering the red, and then the red going into his pants, and then the belt, and then the arm braces thing, and then the mask itself. Just scary as shit. And he had 3 or 4 versions, maybe even 5, before he finally demasked himself or unmasked, whatever. He had several versions of it that were just really cool looking. Really cool looking. Even when he was with X-Pac, he had, it looks like, kind of just like the same design as he had originally, except now they just reversed the colors. Instead of it being black on top, now it's red on top and black on the bottom, with red kind of splashing over on top of it. But really cool stuff. And even when he became Kane later, he became unmasked. And then he did put a mask back on, but it was a different kind of mask that kind of just had the two holes for the eyes and then just like a hole for the mouth, but it's like uncovering his chin as well. And then, of course, he was corporate Kane. So, but anyway, but the whole Kane look itself, just not even the corporate part of it, but just like with the red and the black, there's so many variations of it that are pretty cool. And when he would come to the ring and he would put his hands in the air and then strike him down, and then all of a sudden the fire would come out of the ring post, like that's just cool. And then the music to accompany all that makes it even far more scary. You know, yeah, I think that's probably Jim Johnston, who doesn't get enough credit as far as I'm concerned. But Kane definitely almost had his solo number 2 spot, but I had to give it up for Rey Mysterio, Goldust, and Vader, because they were just absolutely amazing with their stuff too. And my number 1 overall all time is The Undertaker. And I'm going to say The Undertaker because when I was thinking earlier about guys whose characters looked like, their attire looked like their character, to me, it adds to the mystique of the character. It adds to them. So I'm looking at The Undertaker when he first came in. Every WWE 2K game now has like 3 to 4 versions of The Undertaker, because there was the American Badass, there was the original one, there was the Ministry, there's the current one, there's the WrestleMania 31, so there's at least 5, and I'm sure there's maybe a couple other types of Undertaker variations to look at throughout his career, and probably at least a couple others. But originally, just The Undertaker in like 1991, I think that was when he came in, 91, at Survivor Series with the tie down his front, and he's got like that big hat that covered his entire face, and he would, take it off and then look up. You see his long jet black hair. I think it used to be a little tinge of red because of course he's naturally redheaded, but and then the way that they did his makeup on his face, oh my God, this guy was just, and he would no sell. And it's just all, I know we're talking in-ring stuff versus just the attire itself. But even now, the way you look at it and the music that accompanies and the druids that would come out and the fire that they would have on their sticks, like just so cool to look at. And I'm including that in his attire because it's all a part of his character, which now is almost like, oh, well, what about the whole character? That's not really what I'm talking about, but it just adds so much to his attire because they're wearing something very similar to kind of what he wears to the ring now, because he wears like this hooded robe thing that goes all the way down to his feet, and it takes him 45 minutes to walk from the back to the ring and undo his thing, and then when he would take it off, I think they had like a lightning thing they used to do, or at least when the match was over. I don't know. They did some stuff, and they don't really do all that much anymore because it costs money. But overall, The Undertaker to me has the best attire overall in all time, because it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. And I kind of wish he didn't have the Texas, I guess, twang, the Southern twang to his voice, because I think if he had a voice more like a little bit deeper, maybe like a Sid Vicious or an Ultimate Warrior, or maybe like Jake the Snake Roberts, because he did do some slow speaking, and I thought that was pretty cool because it adds to that mystique of the character again. But when it comes to actual, like, you hear his voice, you hear the twang, and you're like, maybe it would be more menacing if he didn't have an accent. It just would be a deep, dark voice that would scare the shit out of you. I don't know. Just my thoughts. What do you think? Put it in the comments. And if you want to, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, KJ from OC. And I will be back tomorrow with another question / topic, which will be company that you miss. And I already know my answer. And I'm sure if you know me, you know my answer. And we'll talk about it tomorrow. Take care. I am out.